The Battle of Stalingrad did not begin as a symbolic fight. It began as a strategic decision shaped by resources, geography, and ideology. In 1942, Nazi Germany launched a major summer offensive in the south of the Soviet Union. Its goals were oil fields in the Caucasus and control of key transport routes along the Volga River. Stalingrad stood directly on that river. It was an industrial city, producing tractors, weapons, and machinery. It was also a major transport hub. Controlling it would disrupt Soviet logistics and protect the German advance toward the oil fields. From a military perspective, the city mattered. It also mattered ideologically. The city carried Stalin's name. Capturing it would be a propaganda victory. For Hitler, it became personal. For Stalin, losing it was unacceptable. What could have remained a mobile campaign hardened into a fight over a single city. As German forces advanced in the summer of 1942, the Red Army retreated under pressure. Cities fell one after another. Civilian evacuation from Stalingrad was incomplete. Many workers stayed to keep factories running. Others had no means to leave. By late summer, hundreds of thousands of civilians were still inside the city. When the Luftwaffe began bombing, Stalingrad was turned into rubble. Entire neighborhoods burned. Thousands of civilians were killed in days. Ironically, the destruction removed the advantage of German mobility. The city became a maze of ruins, favoring close combat. What followed was not a conventional battle. It was the start of a war of endurance inside a destroyed city. By September 1942, the battle moved fully into the city. What remained of Stalingrad was broken concrete, twisted metal, and burned-out factories. Streets lost names. Buildings became landmarks known by their ruins. Combat occurred at distances measured in meters. German forces relied on artillery and air power, but rubble limited their effectiveness. Soviet troops adapted to the environment. They stayed close to German positions to reduce bombing. This style of fighting became known as Rattenkrieg, rat war. Small units fought for individual rooms, staircases, and basements. A single building could change hands multiple times in one day. Snipers became highly effective. Vasily Zaitsev became famous, but thousands of others operated without recognition. Life expectancy at the front line was short. New soldiers were often sent into combat with minimal training. Weapons were scarce. Orders were simple: hold ground or die. Retreat without permission was punished. Civilians trapped in the city lived in cellars and ruins. Food was almost non-existent. Water was drawn from the Volga under fire. Children, the elderly, and the wounded died quietly in basements. Factories continued operating while fighting raged around them. Workers assembled tanks and weapons under bombardment. Some went directly from factory floors into combat units. The battle became one of attrition. The Germans advanced slowly, paying a heavy price. The Soviets lost men at a terrifying rate but refused to break. The city consumed entire divisions. By November, German forces controlled most of Stalingrad. But they were exhausted, overstretched, and exposed. In November 1942, the Soviet command launched Operation Uranus. Instead of attacking the strongest German positions inside the city, Soviet forces struck the weaker flanks held by Romanian and Hungarian units. The offensive achieved surprise. Within days, Soviet armies broke through on both sides and advanced rapidly. On November 23rd, they linked up west of Stalingrad, encircling the German Sixth Army. More than 250,000 Axis soldiers were trapped. Hitler ordered the army to hold its position. He promised resupply by air. This decision sealed its fate. The Luftwaffe lacked the capacity to deliver sufficient food, fuel, and ammunition. Winter conditions worsened the situation. Inside the pocket, supplies ran out. Soldiers slaughtered horses for food. Ammunition was rationed. Frostbite, disease, and starvation spread. Wounded men froze to death in makeshift shelters. Soviet forces tightened the ring. German attempts to break out were forbidden. Relief efforts failed. The reality of defeat became unavoidable. In January 1943, Soviet troops launched the final offensive. Resistance collapsed sector by sector. On January 31st, the southern group surrendered. On February 2nd, the remaining forces laid down their arms. The Sixth Army was destroyed. Tens of thousands were dead. About 90,000 survivors went into captivity. Few would return home. The Battle of Stalingrad marked a turning point in World War II. It was the first complete destruction of a German field army. The myth of German invincibility was broken. The psychological impact was enormous. In Germany, the defeat shattered confidence. In the Soviet Union, it became a symbol of survival and resistance. For the first time, large numbers of people believed that Nazi Germany could be defeated. Militarily, the balance shifted. After Stalingrad, the Red Army began a sustained westward advance. Germany was forced into a defensive war it could not win. The human cost was extreme. Estimates vary, but more than 2 million soldiers and civilians were killed, wounded, or captured. The city itself was almost completely destroyed. Survivors returned to ruins. Stalingrad demonstrated the nature of industrial war. Strategy, ideology, and personal decisions merged into mass suffering. Orders given far from the battlefield translated into starvation, freezing, and death for those trapped inside the city. The battle's meaning is not only in its scale, but in its warning. When political goals override human limits, destruction becomes total. Stalingrad remains a reminder of how modern war consumes everything it touches.